Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So, jury selection continues in the Diddy case. We have some fascinating stories to tell you about certain jurors who were booted and certain jurors who were put through. But we got to start, ironically, with something that happened here at TMZ.
You went too far. Well, not you, but your co-host on the Two Angry Men podcast. He was called out, Mark Geragos, called out by the prosecutors in Diddy's case because Mark was in court yesterday on day one of jury selection, and the prosecutors said they noticed that he was, the word they used was consulting, that Diddy's attorneys, he has 7 attorneys, actually he added an 8th today.
Right.
But his attorneys were turning around in the gallery, and the prosecutor said consulting with Geragos about jury selection. And the problem for that, what the prosecutors say is, he can't do this because he's on a podcast where he is talking about this case every week.
So in other words, there's
a rule where you can't do both.
Well, what they're saying is, they're saying that he is in some form or fashion part of the defense team. And if he's part of the defense team, there's a gag order that requires him not to make these statements. So they're saying that he's violated the rule, that he is part of the defense team. Now, I don't know
if he's going to say that he's part of the defense.
And I don't know if the judge is going to say whether he's part of the defense team or not, because I don't know what he was saying or whatever.
The prosecutors wrote a letter to the judge saying, you need to please remind Mr. Geragos of this rule.
Interesting, in the letter, they pointed out a particular thing Geragos said on the podcast. So the prosecution now, we know, it just came out today, that they have 5 lawyers on the team, all of whom are 6?
6.
Now, the ones I know of 5, all women. Is the 6th a woman?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. 6 women, all white. All white.
Correct. That's my understanding. I've only seen a couple of them, or know of a couple of them, but my understanding is you got a 6-pack of white women.
That's not coincidental.
It's very interesting to me. But, when prosecutors try to get too cute, you referenced O.J. Simpson, sometimes it comes back and backfires.
Interesting. I think
6-pack?
They referenced exactly that in this letter to the judge.
Remember, the prosecutors are the ones who wrote the letter to the judge. I don't know if they would have liked the reference to them as a 6-pack.
It sounded like they did not.
And there were other things in the podcast, but they clearly heard the podcast or watched it and took issue with him talking so openly about the case. Although I'm sure when they saw it or heard it, they didn't have an issue with it. It was when he showed up in court and appeared to them to be working.
Now, we don't know what the resolution is, at least at this moment, whether the judge is saying he's part of the team or not part of the team. I don't know what they're going to ultimately do.
Well, we don't know, but remember, Diddy has complained in the past about the prosecutors sort of speaking out in public and trying this case in the media. He's had his attorneys complain about these very same things. So in the letter, the prosecutors say, hey, you didn't want a carnival atmosphere. You didn't want us making you look guilty beforehand.
Well, first of all, don't call Two Angry Men a carnival. Don't do that.
That's the best compliment Two Angry Men has ever gotten. What, are you kidding me? And he's saying, look, you can't have a big public mouthpiece and be part of this team. You got to pick one or the other.
Okay.
So by the way, he also said that he was going to be back next week. Do we know, is he going to be, if the judge makes him choose, what's Mark going to do?
I'm always last to know. But let's talk about jury selection, because there have been some interesting interactions between potential jurors, the judge, and the lawyers in the case.
Yeah, there are some jurors, obviously, who have been excluded, and what's interesting is the ones are being excluded and the ones that aren't being excluded. There was one man who said that his son had been beaten up while he was a student at George Washington University. And the judge said, well, do you know who attacked him? And he said, I was told it was 3 young black men. And they said, well, can you be unbiased? He said, people are people. And everybody was cool with that.
Including the defense.
Including the defense.
Which is interesting because when we've done a bunch of documentaries for Tubi on this trial, and what we were told was they were going to stay clear of any domestic violence or violence, especially if it relates to a family member. But they seem to be particularly concerned about women who were alleged victims. This is a man.
This is a man whose son, yeah.
And they let it through.
Yeah.
Now, there's another one where it sounds to me like this juror was doing somersaults to get out of jury service, saying, I can't sit through a trial because I have to constantly go to the bathroom.
Yes, she said that she has stomach aches and that she would need to take a lot of bathroom breaks.
And then the judge said...
She apologized and said, I'm sorry, I know that's too much information.
But then the judge said, well, can you sit through a movie?
And she had to admit, she was like, yes, I can.
But that's the equivalent of the time before a recess.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
But then she had other things.
But hold on, I just want to say, that's unfair to say that just because you can sit through a movie, you could sit through...
That's why the judge asked the question.
Yeah, but if you can sit through it, even though you're sitting there, I just want to put yourself in that woman's shoes, if you will. If you're sitting there and you really have to go to the bathroom, yes, you can tell yourself, I can hold it, but you're thinking about that the whole time, and now you're not focused on the actual
I get it, but
case.
then they started asking other questions, and it sounded like she just did not want to serve the jury.
Yes, she also said that she had a surgery, and that she had COVID, and all sorts of medical issues.
She got out.
They actually ended up excluding her.
When you make these excuses, a judge does have to press you because you don't want to signal to other jurors that, hey, if you say you have a stomach ache or a small bladder, you'll automatically be excused. They have to press on these issues because ultimately, even though they have almost 600 people sitting there, they got to have 18 people at the end of the day, the 12 jurors and the 6 alternates. So you can't let people walk based on the minor sort of issues that they raise.
My name is Hendo. I'm from Chicago, and I just wanted to say that what did we expect with the jurors, though? Because when we have a high-profile case that's on the media, we have Diddy memes going around. I'm pretty sure we've all seen it. A lot of these jurors know what they're expecting when they get in that court. Me personally, if I were to be in that court and I was a juror, I would already know, honestly, where I would be leaning towards in terms of who I think is right or wrong, because there was a lot of talks about this case in the media. So honestly, am I surprised that these jurors are trying to find a way out of this case? I'm not surprised at all. I mean, what can I say about it?
By the way, there's another juror who's a lawyer who apparently had been reading about jury selection, which
on the train, when he was on the train, and admitted that, yeah, I was on my phone and I read about jury selection, even though he's part of jury selection, and they're not sequestering the jury here, but the judge told everyone involved, said, you are not to watch any news stories about
said that
this.
yesterday.
Yes.
The guy did, so he got
the guy
booted.
did it.
Okay, we got to move on.